The fifth point I'd make in this group, because I think it's so important, and it's clearly important for GE, and I think it's something that we have to fight for, it's not going to be given to us, is a company our size. You know, we're $185 billion in revenue. We'll be 55% outside the United States this year, probably 60% outside the United States next year. We've got to be allowed to globalize. You know, I can't have the people in this room to be anti-globalization people. Just can't. You know, now I would tell you technically, it's impossible for you. You know, when you take a look at what's happened in the financial sector, you can see clearly it's connected today, the financial services business. But somehow we've got to convince you, we've got to convince the government, we've got to convince people that the arc of globalization has to continue. That the arc of being able, you know, I've never been more confident about our company's ability to win every corner of the world. I mean, we can compete and win in every corner of the world. We're a net exporter from this country, you know, so we create lots of high-paying jobs in the US as we do it. But we've got to make somehow people allow us to continue to drive globalization, and that's a fight worth fighting. You know, that, in the end, you know, I talk about the first 4 points to earn the right to do the fifth point. To be able to compete, to be able to win, to be able to take our company forward in the future and not be pulled backwards. So at the end of the day, we've got to make all your CEOs, everybody in this room, not look at globalization as a bad thing, but look at it as a way that we can help the reset, help give people confidence, be more socially responsible on a global basis, to do more engagement in an ever-increasing global world. And if we can do all those things, then I think we earn the right. I don't think we'll be given the right, but I think we have to earn the right to globalize, to compete, to take our brand, our great company in every corner of the world, and that's worth fighting for. That's what we have to make sure that, you know, initiatives like this one help us do, and I speak, you know, not just as G and Jeff Immelt, but John Chambers and, you know, every CEO in the US who runs big global franchises, I think is important in this juncture. So, you know, those are just some thoughts on corporate social responsibility on a rainy Thursday morning. I think, again, you know, there's fear abounds at a time like this. And you know, I think the trick as being a leader today is that you have to be simultaneously, you know, kind of transparent and mindful of what's going on in the world. But at the same time, you've got to give people hope. You got to say, here's where we're going. The future's going to be better than the past. We're going to keep going forward. We're going to keep driving change and give people context. You know, in a company like GE, we've been around since 1878. We're going to be around. You know, we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep persevering. We're going to keep driving change. As a leader, you know, I can tell you that you go through these cycles, right? You go through and say, holy cow. You know, what's happened in the last 8 weeks has just been unthinkable. You know, we do scenario planning as a company in a very diligent way. Let me tell you, we didn't plan on any of these things in our scenario planning, you know. But I think you quickly get to the point to say, you know, this is kind of exciting. This is kind of exciting. And how can we reset the company? How can we change the company to take advantage of where this future world is going to go? And how can we use it as a competitive advantage over time? So, you know, look, I'm kind of to the point now where really looking through it, you know, we can start to see some opportunities to drive positive change in this environment as time goes on. So with that, I'm happy to take questions and let the conversation go wherever you want to take it. So please feel free to ask away. Thank you. Hey, right over there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was a fantastic speech. What I'd like to ask is, given that your experience with the financial issues, I'm wondering how you would, if you like, reflect on how GE Finance operated in terms of social responsibility, and whether you see that being any contribution to where we are now, and what your reflection on that is.
So, you know, GE Capital, which is about 40% of our earnings, has always been AAA rated balance sheet, and we've always kind of originated loans to hold on our own book. So we have 10 or 12,000 people that get in a Taurus every morning, and they go out to factories or retailers, mid-market companies, and they do kind of inventory loans or credit vehicles or things like that, and then we hold them on our own balance sheet. And that's basically what our financial service business does. So we'll go through a credit cycle, but we didn't do CDOs and CLOs and CIVs and things like that as we went through the cycle. Now, look, I think everybody hates financial services right now, right? Everybody hates the people. You know, I think there's a notion that there's like 10 people down here on Wall Street that kind of plotted all this, stuff like that. Financial service industry is very important to the future of the United States, the future of the global economy. And as citizens, you need to cheer for a good financial service industry coming through this crisis, coming through this cycle, because it's very important for the long-term health of the economy. Yeah.
At the same time, Bill Shireman from Future 500. At the same time, there is global vulnerability. When you have single interrelated systems, the financial system and the climate system and the water system and other systems, for globalization to work, there seems to be a need for intermediation, for the kinds of complexity that we see in nature applied to the economy. How does GE look at the process of globalization and how to create a global economy that isn't vulnerable to systemic collapse that would encompass the entire financial system at once, or the entire climate system or others? How do you see that, as a way to make globalization work?
Look, I think it's a great question. I think there's probably a PhD at Columbia right now writing a paper or something. I mean, it's a great, I don't mean that facetiously. I would say, I'd give an answer in two ways. One is, I would have said 6 months ago that there was limited, maybe even profound decoupling going on. In other words, I think when you go to China or in India, one of the big, kind of population-driven countries, there was an economy, is today an economy that is quite separate from their export economy. Growing consumerism, growing confidence in those countries that could have withstood an economic downturn in the United States. I think what a lot of us failed to see completely is at the same time that the economic world, let's say the industrial world, was decoupling a little bit, the financial services world was actually becoming more interwoven. And when the mode of failure is someone in the financial service world, you see the whole world get pulled in, have to react, and things like that. So clearly financial services is a place where you need to understand where those interdependencies take place, point number one. Point number two is GE, we kind of see it as an interdependent world. And in our own little universe called GE, we can treat it like an interdependent world. And it's one of the places where being a multi-business, I mean, a lot of people don't like conglomerates, and conglomerates get a bad name, and people say, it's your time is over, stuff like that. But globalization is one place where being a multi-business company is very helpful, because you don't have to do everything everywhere in order to be a citizen of every place in the world. And we can do an energy plant one place, a healthcare project one place, an R&D lab one place. And at the end of the day, we have planted a seed in every part of the world. We have a natural, I would say, economic and geographic hedge because of that. One of the numbers I never look at as a CEO is currency, because we are almost perfectly hedged because we basically do things all over the world, and one currency goes up, another currency goes down. So in my own world, I'm able to manage GE to be an interdependent entity on a global basis.